And we're joined by soon-to-be retired Commodore Kerry Noyes and CEO Brett James. Kerry tells me that her Commodoreship comes to an end at 6 p.m. on Monday. So her last official function is tonight, and she's hoping that somebody can get there and buy her a drink for their AGM. They've asked if you can keep the noise up at 6 p.m. while they're doing their AGM, because it makes it a really good atmosphere. So we'll hear from Kerry later. And Brett, thank you for coming down as well from the Gold Coast. While you're at sea, and Kerry's being replaced, you're going to be watched over again by our radio relay vessel JBW, which will be helmed by Stake, who I did see here earlier, and of course led by David Kellett. And we're very, very grateful for John Winning, a long-time supporter of the club, for making JBW available for both of our major blue water races, this and the Hobart race, once again this year. It's an essential and very important safety measure that we have. We're also getting great support once again from Marine Rescue New South Wales, Cordia and the Yellow Brick Trackers, and for the first time we'll be able to show the entirety of the race live on the trackers from here in the clubhouse. We tried it for one of our races last year, but this year it's going to be running from the very start, so people will be able to follow you back at the clubhouse as well as online. Finally, we take great confidence as a board in being able to hand over responsibility to the race to our race committee led by Tim Cox, and you'll hear very shortly from Tim. But Tim's supported by David Jordan, Sam Hughes, Dave Kellett and Simon Turpin, who are our race committee. And that commitment that starts many, many months ago to making this race happen is incredibly important to us. But moving on, the first sort of order of events for this evening is to hear from the Bureau of Meteorology on what you can expect. I know a lot of you have been looking at your own models, but I'd like to introduce Gabriel Woodhouse from the Bureau, who will run us through the weather predictions, and we'll also do so again on Saturday morning for our final briefing. So over to you, Gabriel. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Gabrielle Woodhouse from the Bureau of Meteorology, and I'm going to be talking through the safety in terms of weather over the water for the race over the weekend. So, oh no, is this working? Yes. So tonight what I'll be working through is all of our forecast terminology, as well as the marine service that we do provide from the Bureau, and then finally moving into the weather forecast for the race start and into the weekend as well. First things first, we forecast the wind, and we do so by looking at the wind direction, and we do this from the 16 different compass points. Wind strength, we do as an averaged over 10-minute period, and it's for a wind 10 metres above the surface. So not necessarily what you'll experience as you're standing on the ground or indeed on your yacht, but just above the surface itself. The wind averaging is to eliminate the variation that we see minute to minute, and gives you a bit more of a smoother indication of what winds you can expect averaged across the conditions. Wind gusts are an important factor with the wind as well. Wind gusts are typically about 40% stronger than the mean wind speed, and these can come through as squalls or even from thunderstorm downbursts. So it is important to keep an eye on things like thunderstorms forecast over the waters. Now, moving on to the marine state, we forecast a few factors here. These include seas, which is the wind-generated wave action, as well as swell, and then how these are combined as the significant wave height. So the seas themselves are what we refer to as the locally generated wind wave, and these tend to be rather disorganised and have a really low period. Swell itself, we look at waves that are generated from a distant weather system, and these become more organised over time and typically have a much longer period. Both the seas and the swell are then combined into what we call the significant wave height, or otherwise known as the combined wave height. Now this is the average of the highest third of wave heights, which, whilst it sounds a little bit confusing, what it actually means is that most waves that you'll see will be a little bit below the significant wave height, but the waves themselves can combine such that you'll have maximum wave heights that are up to double the significant wave height. So that is an important factor to remember out on the water, that the significant wave height and the waves that you may see at some point can be up to double that height itself. The next part is our wind warning service. So over the waters, we do tend to see much stronger winds. Typically, we will have strong and gale force wind warnings. What this means is that for a strong wind warning, we need to have winds 26 to 33 knots, and we'll see wind gusts, at least 40% stronger, and in this case, 35 to 47 knots. Gale force winds and a gale wind warning offer wind speeds 34 to 47 knots. And again, those wind gusts being a little bit stronger, 48 to 66 knots. Storm force wind warnings can't be confused with thunderstorms. So these are two very separate categories. Storm force winds are winds that are quite strong, and indeed 48 to 63 knots, and wind gusts are up to 88 knots there. So pretty strong, and we don't typically see them along the New South Wales coast unless we have a very strong low pressure system. Again, hurricane force winds, stronger still, and we don't typically see them very often at all. So the one thing to note with these warnings, we do issue them fairly regularly, and they do get updated at least 6 hourly. And that one thing to note, thunderstorms and storm force wind warnings are quite different things. So moving on to the Bureau's service itself, and where to find the information and what kind of information we provide. First and foremost, you can access the marine services through a number of channels. This includes the satellite, radio channels, and also the internet. With the internet, I know that data while you're out on the water can be, it can use up a lot and you don't have that much access to it. So we do have a marine light page. This page is a web page that just has all of our forecasts and warnings in text format. It doesn't have any images or graphics or advertising, so that it doesn't chew through all of your data, and you can access it on the water quite easily. So it's a nifty way to be able to access all of our products. So what kind of products do we actually have, and where are they? Within 60 nautical miles of the land, we have our coastal waters forecasts. Now, these are issued at least twice a day unless we need to update them, and the forecast goes out for 4 days itself. And with that, we will have warnings, and they're for the different wind categories that I was speaking about just earlier. Those warnings are updated at least every 6 hours unless we see any observations that change that warning, and we'll update when that is necessary. When warnings are not necessary, the forecast itself is only issued twice daily, and that is usually after 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. So for the race on the weekend, the coastal waters that you would be looking for would be the Sydney closed waters, Sydney, Hunter, Macquarie, Coffs, Byron, and then the Gold Coast waters. The Gold Coast waters are then operated out of Queensland, so it's a double whammy of looking through a number of Bureau web pages, unfortunately. And this is what an example looks like. So typically you'll have a weather situation that will describe the synoptics, and then below that it'll detail the wind, the seas, the swell, and then also weather. And it's important to check that information before you head out, particularly if there's thunderstorms or strong wind changes or warnings. This is what an example warning will look like. So on the warning page itself, it'll just label the coastal waters that have a warning current or will become current on a particular day. The details themselves are contained within the coastal waters forecast for the wind strengths and directions. So it is important to look at both. Beyond the 60 nautical mile mark from the land, we have a high seas forecast. Now, similar to the coastal waters forecast, these are issued twice a day, but the forecast only goes 24 hours in advance. And again, warnings are issued every 6 hours, just like for the coastal waters forecast. These are all in text format like this, so sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to get your head around it, but what it does is a very similar fashion. It starts off with what warnings are current, a situation that will describe the synoptics, and then below that it'll give the forecast in terms of the wind strengths and also the sea state. So it's important to read through the whole thing to get a good idea of what to expect. Lastly, you can also access forecasts through Meti. Now, this is a graphical product where you can look through quite a few different forecast parameters, and this includes all of our wind, our sea state, swell, and weather. So it's a good way to be able to check through when you can see particular changes coming in, and you can focus more closely in on particular parts that you might be more likely to use rather than necessarily some of the stuff that's quite offshore. These grids come straight from our forecast database and are issued and updated twice a day. And these are also released usually about 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. So moving on to what I think a few people would be quite interested to hear about is the weather for the weekend and the race. So far, in terms of the forecast conditions, at the moment we have a high pressure system over the state and a low pressure trough that's over towards Western Australia and South Australia. Now that is going to move east over the coming days and will be over the inland New South Wales come Saturday. And then we'll start to see that move through on Sunday, where we'll see a wind change develop along the coast and push through the northern parts come Monday morning. And this is what the satellite picture looked like earlier this afternoon with that low pressure system and trough over through eastern parts of Western Australia. And we'll see that cloud coming across the state over the next couple of days. So, race start. On Saturday, during the morning, we'll have a west-northwesterly drainage flow of about 10 knots. That is going to become light and variable in the middle of the day before a northeasterly breeze develops from about 2 p.m, and that'll be about 10 knots. Seas will remain below a metre, and we will have some high cloud around and the slight chance of a shower from race start. As we move into the afternoon and you move outside the heads, we will start to see that northeasterly breeze remaining about 10 knots, and the chance of a shower is still fairly similar. But as we move into the evening, those winds are going to strengthen and turn a little bit more towards the north. So 10 to 15 knots come the evening, significant wave heights of about a metre, and the seas also increasing to about a metre. We'll also see the chance of showers increasing during the evening, and we will start to see the risk of a thunderstorm later at night on Saturday for much of the coast. Similar conditions sort of heading into the middle part of Saturday evening and indeed the later part. Come Sunday, this is when we're going to start to see that trough moving further east, the winds strengthening and the likelihood of showers and thunderstorms increasing. So Sunday morning, we'll see the winds increasing from the north to be 15 to 20 knots. Seas also increasing to 1 to 1.5 metres. And we will see cloudy conditions with showers and the chance of a thunderstorm. Now, later on Sunday morning, we'll start to see the winds swing a little bit more from the northwest and remaining 15 to 20 knots. Significant wave heights will start to increase a little bit as those wind speeds continue to increase, so looking at reaching up to 2 metres. And we are looking at chance of a shower, but the risk of thunderstorms starts to decrease during Sunday morning as that trough moves closer to the coast. Sunday afternoon, however, is when the trough starts to move up the New South Wales coast, and so that will come through as a west to southwesterly wind change, and it'll be quite strong and gusty. So at this stage, it'll be 20 to 25 knots, and it'll reach the Sydney waters in the afternoon, the Hunter Coast later in the afternoon, and through the Macquarie Coast in sort of like the early evening. And with that, we do have the possibility of a strong wind warning with that change as it moves through, mostly offshore. Further north, sort of north of about Kempsey or Coffs Harbour, we will still have those winds north to northwesterly, 15 to 20 knots. As we move into Sunday evening, those winds start to strengthen, and the likelihood of seeing a strong wind warning for the Macquarie, Hunter and Sydney coasts increases. and we'll still keep the winds north to northwesterly, 15 to 20 knots further north. Significant wave heights will remain 1.5 to 2 metres, and that'll mostly be generated from the wind, so it'll be mostly seas rather than swell. By Monday morning, that southwesterly change will move through the northern parts of the coast, but it won't be as strong as what we'll see further south. So north of Southwest Rocks, that change will be sort of 15 to 20 knots rather than 20 to 25 knots. And more generally speaking, winds will be west to southwesterly, 15 to 20 knots. Seas remaining 1.5 to 2 metres, and we'll see those showers clearing with that southwesterly wind change. By Monday evening, that front and trough will be much further out over the Tasman, and we'll have a high pressure system extending a ridge across the state. What this means is we'll start to have some variable winds up in the norths, but they'll be mostly northerly, about 10 knots, and slowly swing westerly during the day. Further south through the Hunter and Sydney coast, the winds will remain westerly, 15 to 20 knots, and that's just due to the ridge being much further north at this stage. And we will still have the seas being a little bit lower up through the northern half, so sort of north of about Southwest Rocks, Seal Rocks, and below, like south of Seal Rocks, 1 to 1.5 metres. By Tuesday, we will have a front that's going to skim the southern parts of the state. And so this will keep winds a little bit fresh through the Sydney and Hunter coasts, where they'll still remain west to northwesterly, 15 to 20 knots. They'll be light and variable, mostly up through the northern parts, although they will start to swing to the southwest during the evening, about 10 to 15 knots, but that'll be quite late in the day to see that happening up around sort of north of Seal Rocks. So once you get up to the Gold Coast, the forecast up there at the moment is for fairly sunny conditions over the weekend and into the new week, with maximum temperatures into the low 20s, which I think is quite pleasant for this time of year. But once we have that front move through over the weekend and into Monday, the chance of showers is pretty slim over the waters. So it's looking to be a bit wet at the beginning part of the race, but the latter half should be quite sunny and only a little bit of cloud around. Beyond Tuesday, the long-range forecast at this stage looks to show another high-pressure ridge coming across the state on Wednesday, and so that'll generally lead to light and variable winds. Come Thursday, another front will be approaching, so winds will start to strengthen from the north to northwest for the latter half of the week. So that's another one to watch out for with that on the forecast. In terms of the sea surface temperatures and currents at the moment, you can see that the East Australia current is just hanging off the mid-north coast at the moment, with an eddy much further offshore from Sydney. And in terms of tides over the next couple of days, high tides are generally going to be between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, and again in between sort of 8 and 10 p.m. So another one to watch out for if you do need to retire and head into port. So to summarise, for the race itself, we'll see northerly winds increasing on Saturday night, starting to turn northwesterly during the day on Sunday morning, before a fresh to strong and gusty west to southwesterly change moving through on Sunday afternoon and evening. That change is not expected to be as strong through the northern parts of the coast as it moves through on Sunday night and early Monday morning. It's likely that we will see a strong wind warning for that change, particularly for the Macquarie, Hunter and Sydney coasts. Thunderstorms and showers are most likely Saturday night and into Sunday morning, but then we'll see a clearing trend during the day on Sunday. We will see seas increasing with those stronger winds, particularly on Sunday. And so, yeah, I'd just like to say thank you and good luck to everybody over the weekend, and wait to see who came first.
That's Gabby, and just to emphasise again the weather briefing again on Saturday, where Gabby will be back, having firmed up, I'm sure, some of the expectations. Over now to our race committee chairman, Tim Cox, to walk us through the race and paperwork. Tim.
Thank you, Commodore. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me firstly confirm that all 54 boats are all signed off and cleared to go, and there are only some minor discrepancies that I'll draw to your attention at the end. My primary concern, as always in these races, is safety, and I think it's particularly important that we recognise that this is the first race of the 2018-19 CYC Blue Water Series, and there are always some new people going in these races, and some of us who've grown older during the year and returning who might not have been to sea for some time. And I do ask that when you go out on the first day, you're cognizant that the ocean can be most unforgiving. I draw your attention to Sailing Instruction 13.1, which deals with reporting at the start. With 54 boats, I do ask that you allow some time to get there early. The start boat will be on station from 11:30, so there's plenty of time if everyone does their best and gets early. The start will be at 1300 on Saturday, and I would draw your attention to leaving the port lateral mark in Lady Bay to starboard. And when you get to the other end, please don't forget the declarations are required within 6 hours of finishing, as noted in Sailing Instruction 25.1. Communications for this race, we will have JBW, and she's going all the way to the Gold Coast. We will be using Marine Rescue Lake Macquarie for all skeds, and Marine Rescue Cape Byron will be there during daylight hours. You will hear JBW calling those two stations 10 minutes before each sked on the race frequency of 4483. And I would remind you that for this race, which is predominantly coastal, we do ask that you make attention particularly to keeping watch on Channel 16. Marine Rescue New South Wales maintains a continuous watch on 4125 kilohertz for distress calls, and would like me to bring to your attention, if you do have a distress call to make, that you make it on that frequency. Skeds throughout this race. The first sked is at 19:05 on Saturday evening, then at 0:05, 0:75 and 18:05. If you miss a sked, you have both Justine's and my telephone numbers, and you can call us at any time that you may wish to for any assistance that you require. For boats retiring, please stay on the radio skeds until you're in harbour, and please provide a detailed brief as to why you have retired and any personnel issues. It's always difficult to ring your next of kin and to be unable to answer the question, has anybody been injured? So I would appreciate if you could provide just some overview of any personnel issues for those that retire. Marine Rescue New South Wales have provided a brochure in your nav bags for the return passage. I strongly recommend that you avail yourself of this excellent safety watch system for your return passage to Sydney or to wherever you may be going. An onboard safety brief is absolutely critical and should cover the location of safety equipment, its function and stowage. Additionally, man overboard procedures need to be briefed, understood and exercised before the start of this race. A recent man overboard incident in the United States had a tragic outcome, and man overboards at night are always very challenging. Remember, be clipped on, life jackets and PLBs by night, and whenever the wind exceeds 25 knots. I draw your attention to navigation in this race, particularly when you go closer inshore. It's more important to get to the paper charts. They are easy to read and have much more detail of where the nasty stones are, and generally will provide you with an increased safety factor over most ECDIS, if not all ECDIS systems, which often lack the detail and the need to be skillfully managed. GPS has some errors in it, as you would be well aware, and if Mr. Trump's using it, it has quite considerable errors in it. So one needs to, and one's never sure what he's likely to do. So just be careful, particularly north of, in the Solitary Islands, there are some quite nasty patches of rocks around there, and the hydrographer hasn't been there for a number of years to my certain knowledge, and you should look at the reliability diagrams that are on the charts. So please, for navigation, remember that the paper charts will keep you safe, much better so than ECDIS. Right, I got a couple of spot checks. 6 volunteers: Supernova, Celestial, Dream, Stampede, Voodoo, and Showtime. COA, you have some outstanding documentation, your sat phone number. Comanche, you've got some crew details for next of kin, please. Anybody who's got a crew change after this briefing or one on Saturday morning, please tell the sailing office before you leave the dock. The following boats haven't picked up their decals: Blink, Nautical Circle, She's the Culprit, Showtime, Stampede, and the Goat. Comanche, Chutzpah, and Stampede need one more to sign in for this brief. On that basis and on the weather forecast, I wish you all a safe and timely passage to the Gold Coast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. If we can make sure that people do follow up on those missing bits of paperwork and declarations. To finish off now, I'd like to welcome, as I say, for our last official function, Kerry Noyes, the Commodore of the Southport Yacht Club, to address us about what we'll expect to find when we get to the Gold Coast. Kerry.
Thank you, Commodore. Thanks, everybody. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really happy that this is my last official duty as Commodore of Southport Yacht Club. So I don't think there's any introductions necessary this year. I think this is my 3rd time down here, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all at the finish. So for those of you that have sailed this race before, we look forward to seeing you again at Southport Yacht Club. And for those of you that are coming up for the first time, we look forward to giving you a great welcome when you arrive at our club, whatever time of the day or night it is. Berthing arrangements have been made, and you'll see some berthing area or notifications on the walls here, just down the rear of the room and at the front here on the door. So if you want to have a look at where you're going before you leave the dock on Saturday morning, have a quick view of those and make yourself conversant of your berth. Included in your skipper packs are your marina berth allocations, the seaway depth, charts and further information. So please make sure you read that before you get to the Southport Seaway. As you know, it's a pretty treacherous piece of waterway if you don't get it right. So just have a quick look at that before you come in. Our bar and waterfront restaurant will be open 24 hours upon your arrival, along with our onshore crew delivering you each an arrival gift. So make sure you look out for the onshore crew. I'm sure you'll enjoy whatever you get. Entering into the 33rd Sydney to Gold Coast Yacht Race, proudly sponsored by Noakes. I'd like to thank the team at CYCA for allowing us once again to be the hosts of the finish of the race, and with a great big thank you to the naming rights sponsor Noakes. Thanks to the skippers and crews for your support of this great event. Don't forget also that we have a regatta up north starting on Sunday the 6th of January if you don't head south in the Sydney to Hobart. I hope you have a great race. I'd like to see a lot of you finished before Monday afternoon at 6 p.m. when I hand my cap over. And along with the Southport Yacht Club team, I'd like to wish each and every one of you fair winds, following seas, a great event and great racing up into warmer waters. Thanks very much, and I'll see you at Southport Yacht Club.
Okay, that just about brings us to the end of our briefing. Just a couple of final notices. You may or may not be aware there's a photo competition running each night, and your media contacts are in the pack. Love to get some photos flowing, get the public supporting and yachties supporting what's going on, seeing what's happening by getting up onto our website. Also, a quick note from Matt Allen. Those of you who are sporting E6 rigging, Matt would like to gather you together. If you've got 5 minutes after this briefing, just have a chat about some changes coming through there. So I don't know where Matt, you want to do that. Where is Matt? Just at the front here. If you wouldn't mind sparing 5 minutes, that'd be fantastic. If you do need any further help with your preparations, the people here at the club are here to help. We're very proud to be running this race. This is what we're here for. This is what we do, and we want to make it a success. So whatever our staff, our volunteers, and our members can do to make you welcome, to get you on the water in a safe condition, please shout out. Have a great race. I look forward to seeing you up there. I think I arrive just after you retire at 6 o'clock on Monday night, but I'll certainly see you on Tuesday. Have a great, safe race, and I look forward to seeing a fantastic result. Have a wonderful evening. Have a beer. We'll see you on the Gold Coast. Thank you.